Hello everyone, welcome to New York Emerging Technology Meetup. And this session we are working on the Global AI Bootcamp, which is a global initiative targeting on AI technology and, around the world. This session focused on the Global AI Bootcamp on New York, USA. And in this session we are going to look at different AI technologies that is available and how we can leverage this data and technologies in our applications, right? So we have 40 registration for today's meetup, and in our meetup we are bringing a lot of interesting topics into the AI space. So every month you can expect a lot of new topics and also startups ideas. We are bringing a lot of speakers into the meetup, so you can expect a lot of new areas with this topic. And if you have any questions, you can ask, you can raise a question and you can ask, and you can reach us also if you have any questions. So the today's session, as I mentioned, focused on the Global AI Bootcamp, which is an international initiative happening in January to March. And in the New York chapter, we are working on this specific topic. And we are looking at different technology stack and how you can leverage AI technology in your projects or in your organization, or maybe you are looking for a job in the data science field. So you have come from a different background. So you are looking at these different areas when you are joining in. So we look at these different areas and how you can leverage these technologies in your application development efforts, right? So if you have any questions, you can point at the chat, or you can unmute and you can ask any related question in this meetup. So you can see the opportunity space in the AI is quite big. So we have a lot of areas, sub areas are used in the AI space. The areas like machine learning, automation, decision making, even today's software development also include some sort of AI technologies. And you can see a lot of sub areas, subdomains are created in this AI space. And today's lot of software, so a lot of tools and technologies that you are using are enabled with these AI features. If you look at the tech giants from Google, Amazon to Microsoft, so every technology that we are consuming or every service that we are consuming is AI enabled. So if you look at YouTube, you can see it use recommendation. If you can Netflix, you can see you have recommended movies, right? So if you look at LinkedIn, you have recommended professional. So for an existing website or mobile app, nowadays the AI technology is integrated. So it's the default feature that we need to have some sort of AI enabled feature into these existing platforms. So any platform you see nowadays is AI enabled. That means it's going to integrate into existing website or existing mobile application as an intelligent feature. So we need to decide then what kind of features that we can add, what kind of things we can do. It's a quite big space. There are a lot of things to explore. So there are like technical side of things, there's academic side of things, research side of things. So it's a collaboration of a lot of areas together, make the AI is possible. And if you look at companies like Google, they spend billions of dollars on AI research. Microsoft also same, they have different research arm. So all these tech companies spend a lot of dollar values to increase the number of research and create new innovations within the organization. So also SMEs and other organizations also look for these kind of opportunities and use these researchers and build application on top of that. So because of reason of that, we have a lot of AI open source tools, so that we are going to discuss in today's session. So we have a lot of tools that is available with us that we can leverage these capabilities. So you can see connection with other technologies. You can see it here, how the connection happen with the other technologies, how it connecting with the cloud computing, how it connect with the mobile devices, how it connect with the IoT, things like that. So you can see the connection with AI, with other technologies. So how it going to leverage these features in the application developments, right? So how it going to have the connection. So for example, if you look at cloud computing, you can see how how many percentage of AI technology or the AI capabilities will be added, virtual reality, augmented reality, things like that. So you can see it's cross technology is added, cross industry it added. So if you look at industry sectors also, multiple industry sectors use the AI capabilities. If you look at agriculture to manufacturing, then sport industry, so any industry you name it, you can apply AI technology. Even space industry, to simulation, we can use the AI technology. So likewise, it's cross industry. So we can use all these capabilities much more effectively in the multi-industry manner. So that's why the industry knowledge is really relevant in this sector. So you have people, you have physicists joining into data science, you have chemists joining into that, you have manufacturing experts, agricultural experts joining into AI, where the domain expert is quite key into the AI, right? So you might not have really good IT knowledge, but the domain experience with the AI toolset knowledge, where you can create a lot of things in the AI technology space, because it's all about domain. What specific domain area you are working on, that is really important. So it could be HR, it could be finance, right? It could be marketing, it could be networking. It's cross domain. So AI is a one technology that goes cross domain, multi industries, multi technology, that we can apply these things, right? So he can see potential use of AI. So one of the common use is improving the workflow. So we can improve the workflow really rapidly with use of AI. Then we can analyze large data sets, right? So we can analyze billions of records, trillions of records. If you look at data sets of LinkedIn, if you look at data sets of Google, it's in billions, right? So we can analyze these large volume of data records. And of course, there are another set of technologies also associated with this. Things like big data comes into the picture when you want to process this number of data sets. Then we can improve customer experience. Nowadays in a lot of web experience, we get personalized experience that unique to us. So that is possible with AI. So if you go to an e-commerce site, you get a personalized experience, right? In Amazon, you get a personalized experience. So likewise, a lot of sites you will get a personalized experience because of the AI capabilities. So we can build more personalized kind of experience. So everyone going into the site will come and they will get a unique experience based on their set of what they have worked on that site. For example, if you go to Netflix every time and it's based on your preference, it will update. If you go to YouTube, you can see based on your preference, it's update, and video will be recommended based on your favorites or your previous visits. So like that, you get a customer experience, customized experience on your kind of the favor, right? So in today's this web experience, you can get these kind of benefits in that. Then you can see handle routine tasks. So if you have a lot of manual tasks, we can automate these things, right? If there's every day like a person going to download the file, analyze it, create a report and send it. So these things we can automate. We can do automatically using different technologies. So AI-based technologies, and there are RPA, robotic process automation, like using UiPath software. We can do that. Automating IT infrastructure, right? IoT implementation. So there are a lot of these areas. These are just a few areas. One highlight is it can save a lot of money. So the how much amount of money cost saving for organization that can have with AI. So that is mainly hitting the bottom line. So how much money that organization can save with the AI technology, and then the other kind of areas that I highlighted here. So you can see expected benefits, cost saving. So that is one of the biggest one. So because we have an area called fraud detection, where it's really useful in the financial sector to identify fraud detection. It saves billions of dollars in loss for the organization. So that's the one key area in the AI. So AI is one of the main kind of result is the cost saving part. It can save billions of dollars cost by using AI technology. Handling repetitive tasks. So if you have a lot of repetitive tasks, we can do that. We can automate this using AI technology, right? Ability to handle large data set, that is not possible earlier. Like there are, every day new data is going to create, and we have now billions of records, billions of data points that is generated. So we can handle this kind of a large volume, large scale of data much more easily. As I mentioned earlier, personalization of service. So now you get a lot of personalization for your preferences, right? So individual preferences, you will get experience. Discover new insights. So we have another area called BI, business intelligence, that is coming in, and then we can provide more visualizations, things like that. That's the hidden data in the data set. You can see new insights, new analytics that we can see in that. So now you have a lot of analytics tool in your data. So if you have a website, we can analyze, we can see analytics. Let's say in organization, we have HR department, and we can use analytics, and we can see hidden data, hidden insights in your department, things like that. So analytics also a key part in this space. So you can see the traditional process of working on a data science project. So you can see it starts with the business understanding, how you can start a particular requirement, right? So how you can start with a particular requirement, what kind of the problem that you are going to solve. So it can be simple as predicting tomorrow's weather, or it could be complex as predicting stock market value or predicting harvest season, things like that, even more complex things. So we need to identify what is the business understanding, what is the business case that we are going to solve. So there are certain areas that we can do. It's not like everything we can do, because we are not in a area still like we have generalized form of AI, we call as general AI, but we have more specialized AI that can outperform humans in certain specific tasks. So that's what we need to identify. What are these use cases? What are these areas that we can do in the business understanding section? Then we need to gather the data, right? So we need to gather a lot of data, millions of records we need to gather in the data acquisition phase. So that's where the data pipelines, the data warehouse, things like that are really important. And also there are specific profession called data engineer, that person responsible of gathering this data and collecting, organizing, and putting in a structured format. Because if you have large volume of data, getting this data into specific formats take a lot of effort and time, and we need to use a lot of tools, cloud technologies we need to use to do this process. Then you can see the modeling, which is the data scientist job, where we need to identify specific model, a specific kind of algorithm that we can use for our projects to solve a specific problem, right? So that is where data engineer comes in, where they need to find how to solve that problem. Let's say predicting a weather, what's the tomorrow's weather going to be in our city. So that is we need to identify what is suitable algorithm we are going to use, what are the configurations we are going to use. So that's a job for a data scientist. So that person going to look at the proper algorithm and analyze the data and make the prediction, right? And we have tool set, right? So that person going to use the specific open source tool set, or like we can even use the cloud tools, things like that, to analyze and get the prediction. Then final part of that is the deployment. Why deployment? Because this data science project alone cannot work. We need to connect that into the real world. That means into a website or into a mobile app. If you look at predicting weather, you can see in your mobile apps, what's the tomorrow's weather going to be. So it's like at the end going to be a mobile app or website. So these capabilities will be integrated into these existing platforms, right? It's not a new thing. It's just existing website or existing mobile app that's going to integrate these AI capabilities, right? For example, predicting tomorrow's weather is an AI feature, right? It's a machine learning feature, specifically regression. It's an algorithm that we are using. So that is because tomorrow's weather is not happened yet. So it's a prediction that we need to do. So it used past year data, 40 years of data and other configurations. And based on that, it is going to predict what is the tomorrow's weather going to be. So there's a certain accuracy we can have in that prediction. And based on that, we can get the accurate prediction and get the result out of that, right? So let's look at the process and tool set in the next slides. If you have any questions until this, you can ask. So you can see it's a little bit differ from a software development life cycle and like the software development processes that we do in the software development space. So it's a different space called data science life cycle. where in this space, we have a certain set of areas we need to focus on. One area is the data gathering. We need to have a good set of data, and there's another process called data cleaning. We need to remove any unwanted data, missing data, even corrupt data. We need to remove that. We need to have good, clean amount of data. Then from that, we can come to a data science perspective, where we can work on building a model. And then finally, we can see a deployment. In the deployment, we can integrate this using technologies like Flask, integrate into a website or mobile app through API. And then what we can do is we can provide that to our customer, right? And customer. So it would be your client. Then the acceptance. So they accept, then the project is successful. Otherwise, you need to again go to the iteration and make sure that within the scope you have completed this project and you have successfully delivered the project on time or with the requirements and with the expectation, right? So likewise, then you can iterate, like you can improve it further. There could be a new feature, new thing adding, things like that. You can improve. That is same like software development process that we are doing. So that's also we can keep on increasing and adding new features and enhancing the overall features. So you can see what is machine learning. Computer learns from data in order to perform predictive analytics, right? So online shopping recommendation is one area. So if you go to Amazon, like, you can place an order and you can select item and it's going to recommend what are the other recommended products that you are going to buy. Similar thing, recommendation used in, as I mentioned earlier, Netflix, like sites, and then the YouTube, it used LinkedIn, Facebook, and all these sites. It use the recommendation to recommend professionals, recommend products, recommend movies, recommend videos, recommend audios, things like that. So it's one feature in AI which is called recommendation. But using that feature, you can see it use a lot of it is the main business model of these platforms I mentioned, right? If you go to sites like Booking.com, TripAdvisor, it will recommend hotels, right, like that. And that's that's the main feature, like because they want to get a customer that interested about that specific need. So recommendation algorithm is capable to do that. So that makes sure that you are engaging with that platform. So if you are watching more and more your interesting videos on YouTube, so if the algorithm can recommend you those things, then you are engaging in the platform. Similar in the Netflix, right? Similar in if you're purchasing something, because you have a different kind of a likes and dislikes. So if the algorithm can predict that in a much more accurate way, then you are more likely to buy those products, right? So now all these platforms using these features. So the recommendation is only one feature in AI, one kind of algorithm type in AI, but you can see all the major sites like e-commerce to bookings and these video sharing sites, streaming site use this recommendation feature as their main feature. And that's really success because if they can engage their customer base, then they can increase the subscription and they can generate more money from that. So just one algorithm make their billions of dollars, right? So you can see how powerful is this technology is, right? Then we have the self-driving cars, things like that. So that is called reinforcement learning, where we don't need to provide a data set. It just learn from the environment, right? So that is another technique in AI, which is we call reinforcement learning. So it applied in the self-driving cars and virtual kind of environment. We can even train a robotics application or like a virtual simulation, things like that in the this space. So you can see AI is a quite a vast area. Start from 1950s. Then you can see it's quite a broad area if you say AI, but there are subsections like machine learning and deep learning within this. So the machine learning discuss about one specific problem at a time. So if you want to predict who's the next employee going to leave your organization, if you want to predict the tomorrow's weather, if you want to predict a certain stock price, if you want to predict a certain kind of a financial fraud, that the machine learning is for you. Then deep learning goes way further, where we can predict sequence of letters. So you can see in your mail right now, Office 365, your Gmail, when you type the code, type your email, it will predict what is the rest of the code, right? It is the rest of the text that you are going to type. So that is using deep learning. Then we have a lot of image recognition, video recognition kind of applications, right? Those things are possible with the deep learning technology. So we can have a really kind of a model predicts really advanced models, whether patterns can be predicted using deep learning. So deep learning go way further, where we have a technique called neural network, where in the neural network we can do more complex kind of complex kind of AI predictions like RNN, CNN, like a lot of different techniques are there. We are not going to discuss more details in this session. This session focus more into the machine learning and the tools available as an initial introduction. But we are going to have more sessions like this to discuss more advanced technologies as well. And you can see time frame is quite earlier, 1980s, things like that. The main reason is these are initially initiated from a research phase. But at that time, 1980s, you know, what is the computing power we had. So we didn't have enough computing power to work on this space. So that's why we need to wait a couple of decades to the cloud computing to emerge. With the emergence of cloud computing, now we have capabilities in our devices, and we can create this computing that can do a lot of things much more efficiently and fast, right? So because of the cloud computing, these researchers make practical, made possible with the fast pace of the cloud computing and the high computation that have high performance computing. We also call HPC, that is a really high performance computing now we have with the cloud computing, and these things are more possible. And nowadays we have a lot of advanced AI algorithms because of that reason. So one, cloud computing is one of the main thing that lead to all this. That's why you can see deep learning and technology is booming from 2010 onwards. Reinforcement learning, and now we have other lot of learning techniques that's used in this that leverage these kind of features, right? So we look at now some of the use cases. So it's really important to understand the use cases to get started with this, right? Otherwise, you need to know where we can start with this. So it's really important to understand the use cases and what kind of things we can do. Of course, we can do a lot of things in this space, but understanding use cases helpful to get you a better understanding about the features and things that we can do in this space. So HR side, you can see we can use for recruiting attention. That means we can predict who's the next employee going to leave the organization. Then we can create HR chatbot. So you can chat with the automated kind of a chatbot, and it can answer some of the HR concerns, right? Whether you're going to apply a leave or some problem in the organization, things like that. If cannot sort it from the chatbot, then it can direct to a real person like that. So even now we have a lot of customer service chatbots, things like that. And even we can go way further where we can have a voice bot. So it can be a voice conversation, automated voice conversation. And if that voice bot cannot give the final result, then it can direct to a real person. But you don't need a real person at the beginning to create this, right? So likewise, we can automate a lot of things, a lot of processes in the chart, and it can apply for other industries as well. Then the recommendation, whether we can recommend different professions, things like that into the organization, right? So one of the key areas is the attrition, where we can predict who's the next employee going to leave the organization. So that is one of the common key feature for HR organization, where you have hundreds of thousands of people in your organization, and you want to get idea who's the number of employees, or when they are going to whether they are going to lose their job, or whether they are going to leave organization, right? So now you have, great resignation, where a lot of people leaving their jobs and looking for new jobs, and looking for new things to start on. So that's a really important factor for organizations to look at what are the key trends and who are the likely the employees going to leave a specific organization like that. Then we look at some of the machine learning algorithms. So these algorithms are really beneficial to you to get started work on these areas, right? So it's really important to understand these specific algorithms, right? So these are some of the common algorithms, very like for beginners, and then we can go to more advanced algorithms in deep learning and discuss it more advanced things as well. So one algorithm is called classification. Classification algorithm is giving you purely a binary result, true or false, yes or no, things like that. So it's provide you a lot of understanding about how a specific kind of a result might work, right? So in a true false manner, yes or no, true or false, things like that. So classification helps you to understand that capability. So it's a one specific algorithm that we can use. So it can predict a binary result, whether this person going to leave the company, yes or no, like that. It's always predicting a binary result, right? Remember that, always predicting a binary result. Then we have anomaly detection algorithm. So anomaly detection is finding something weird in the system. So you can see your spam folder in your email using this anomaly detection, where any suspected key terms available in the text, it will go into a spam folder. So you can see in your spam folder mails like that, right? So any suspected terms or keywords, it will putting into spam folder. So that's happening automatically using text analytics feature, but still you can see it's not 100% accurate, where sometimes our important mails also get end up with the spam filters, things like that. So it uses nowadays the AI capabilities than the logical capability, where it can be more accurate than compared to last few years. So anomaly detection is finding something weird in the system. So it used in the banking financial sector, where you can understand, you can look for the financial frauds, credit card frauds, insurance frauds, things like that. It can also use for computer networking sector to analyze the threats, analytics, things like that. We can predict early on that's happening in that. So the computer networking side also using the AI capabilities to do that, do predictions. Not at the moment, it's the predictions that we can do. So anomaly detection algorithms are there to support with that. Then this is the one of the most popular algorithm type, which is the regression algorithm. We can predict how much, how many exact number within a specific like a scope. So we can predict what's the number going to be. So you know your weather application, you will get what's the weather results in your city, the tomorrow's weather, tomorrow 2 p.m. weather, right? Like that, hourly weather you can get, right? So that is a result of the machine learning. Using the regression is a one technique that we can use to do that. So this is a specific technique that we can use to get this algorithm, right? Then how things are organized, clustering. So clustering is another key algorithm. So using clustering, we can find things organized into specific clusters, right? So we can look at what are the clusters that is available, like specific groups that's hidden in the data set. You can find these hidden data sets in your data set, and you can find and you can isolate them. So you can find hidden data that is not possible earlier, that you can find using clustering technique. The k-mean clustering is one example and one specific algorithm that we can use. You can see, you can find groups like this. Once you input your data set, it will show results like this. So used for behavior segmentations on different areas. So you will find hidden data sets in your application using the clustering technique, right? So if you have any questions, of course, you can ask, you can type in the chat, or you can ask any questions that you are having in these areas. Then recommendation, as I mentioned, used in widely in lot of applications. So this is one algorithm that we can use in recommendation. Matchbox large scale only online Bayesian recommendation. This is created from Microsoft Research. The researchers in the Microsoft Research have created this algorithm, and this research, because this have a kind of a life cycle, how this algorithm comes, right? So there's a research component of this. So you look at what are the existing research, and you come up with a new research. As a part of that research, you will have this algorithm that is proving in the mathematical formula. Then we have you need to test that algorithm that prove in the mathematical formula into a test case. Then once this is approved by other fellow members in the research organizations or research industry, research areas, so then it's going to publish as a published research. So when this research published, then it can be it can be used by the open source community, and then open source community going to apply these research, these algorithms, and putting into the Python environment, because Python is the main language framework we are using to develop this application. So open source community and specific these frameworks have their own organizations like scikit-learn, have the scikit-learn, the group of people like the open source developers and the community. So they are going to look at these algorithms and any updates and changes, and they going to apply that into these frameworks. Then as a developers, we can apply these the specific updates or the new algorithms, and we can apply that in our application, right? So you can read the research paper, but you don't need to in-depth go into the research paper. You can get a summary of that, but you can look at the application side. But if you are going in the academic side, you need to go into the research side, where if you are working on a specific research and if you are proving a specific algorithm, then you need to go to the mathematics side of things, and you need to prove that it works in the math, and you need to prove that in the formula, and then only you can go back and then prove the test case in Python most probably, and then publish a research paper. It can take some time and sometimes few years, and you collaborate with other researchers to do that. That is academic side of things, but here we are looking at the industry side of things, the industry side, how it works. So industry side is looking at the capabilities and how we can apply for applications, right? If you look at, I give the example like Netflix and all this, so it use the recommendation algorithm. It's not in a way going to introduce a new algorithm. It's just use the existing algorithm and do that. But if you have big budget and things, time to spend, then you can also create your own research. So that's Google is doing. They are also building as a part of that, they are building their own research and creating new algorithms, new type of algorithms before actually building in the industry as well, right? So that is also for big companies, they can do that. So they have their own researchers working on the problems and looking at and creating their own research. But the research is, like most of the time research need to be public. You need to put into the research committee, and as a research paper, it need to be available in the research journals. That's the academic side of things and the research side of things. But AI is an industry that research academic side tightly linked with the industry side. If you look at other areas like software development, programming, it's not tightly linked, right? When you find new thing, new innovation in the software industry, or let's say new programming language or new compiler, to adapt that into the mass market or the industry, it will take many years. But in AI, it's within months, within weeks, when you research will be applied into the open source framework. So that is one of the key innovations that we have in the AI industry. There's a question asked, can we see the recording? Yeah, so we'll be making a recording of this session, and we'll be sharing with all the members, so you can also take a look at it, and when you are doing some practicals, you can also follow through with the recording as well. Then we look at introduction to machine learning languages. What are the languages you need to know in order to master? So you can see Python, we cannot avoid. That is one of the main language we need to use. That's providing a lot of features and benefits in the Python language. And other is the R language. That's also you can use for statistics, and also a lot of data analysis side. You can use R language. Where initially the R language is the one more popular in this space, but now Python overtook. So Python is more popular, where we can do, as I mentioned, deep learning, reinforcement learning, like a lot of advanced techniques we can do. But remember, Python is not only for machine learning data science space. Python is a programming language that we can use in other technology space as well. For example, we can use Python for game development. We can use Python for web application development. We can use Python for database development, desktop application development, IoT, things like that. But in the data science space also, Python become a major player. And some of the other areas I mentioned also, Python become major player, but not all areas. For example, web development, we have other competitors as well that is doing really well, like React JS, like technologies, front-end technologies doing really well in the web space. But in the data science space, Python is number one. where we have a lot of support packages, things like that, to develop the application. Then we also have this kind of desktop, like this type of drag and drop tools, which is called Azure Machine Learning Studio. In this tool, we can drag and drop, and we can look at how the algorithm works, how the process works, things like that. So it's really good for beginners, because I mentioned, like you can come from different industries, then you might not have any IT background. You might be a physicist, you might be coming from the agriculture, manufacturing, HR, then you don't have any IT knowledge, but still you can be a data scientist, where your domain expertise are really important in this space because of that. So in that case, for beginners, it's really friendly tool where you don't need to first go in depth with programming, because programming would be a new thing for anyone not coming from IT side. So then you can look at this kind of a drag and drop tool where you can familiar with the data science basics, right? How we can do a specific project, so how to do data cleaning, how to select the algorithm, right? How to finalize the project, things like that. We can familiar with this kind of a beginner friendly tool. So this tool is created for these kind of areas where we can, for the beginners, they can use these applications, and we can use these things to build the application. But for advanced developers, they can use Python and the data science tool to build these applications and get a lot of kind of interest and support from that, right? So this main tool, which is the Anaconda tool, I think most of you are familiar with that. If not familiar, you can try this tool. In this tool, you can see here, which is all-in-one package, which is the data science, the collaboration tool that we can use. So you can use the individual edition, which is the free version, where it supports thousands of data science packages, and it supports for all the platforms. You can get it for Mac, so you can get it for Linux and web environment. So you can see it supports with a lot of standard packages out there, which is scikit-learn, right, NumPy, TensorFlow, all these packages. And you get a lot of softwares also built into this, right? You get a lot of softwares built into this, right? So here you can see you have the Jupyter Notebook, you have Spider software, things like that. So you can see here the lot of capabilities that we have. Yeah, so we have a couple of questions. So we have Philip joining for the meetup. Hello, Philip. So thank you for joining the meetup, and we are looking to collaborate with you also. So then, yeah, hello, welcome. Then there's a question for Azure ML Studio. You need to put a credit card. So the free version, as I mentioned, you don't need to put a credit card. So let me share that URL. But in the Azure portal, of course, you need to put a credit card to create the account. So let me just put that URL here. And I'm going to show that also during the later part of the session. So I'm going to show that, but you don't need to put credit card to use the drag and drop tool I mentioned. But in the Azure portal, you need to put a credit card, but you get a free account for 1 month with 200 USD. But you need to put a credit card just to verify. Same for Azure and other cloud providers for verification purpose. They are looking for that one. Yeah. Okay, so then you can download this software. So it's available in all platforms. So let me share this URL in the chat so you can take a look at it, right? So, okay, so then as I mentioned, this tool, I have shared the URL. So like this, so this is the beginner friendly tool where we call this Azure Machine Learning Studio. So this tool where we can look at drag and drop environment and how we can leverage the drag and drop environment. So where you don't need to type these things in Python, you can use that directly in a visual manner. So for example, this is a data set of automobile data. So you can right click, visualize, and you can visually see what's happening in your data like this, right? So you can, let's say, we can click the price column, and you can see mean, median, standard deviation, all these statistics directly from this column. And you can see there are some empty columns, things like that. Then we can do data cleaning. We can remove unnecessary records, things like that. So we can look at these kind of options like how you can clean the data, how you can select a certain algorithms, things like that in this, right? So here you can see there are a lot of options here. So we can do filtering, right? We can select different machine learning kind of algorithms. So anomaly detections, then classifications, clustering, regression algorithms. So you can see these are standard algorithms that we can use. So in this tool, we don't need to like write any code in Python. We can just drag and drop, and we can use these features and as we can directly connect this one another to get these capabilities, right? So that is one of the features that we can have here. Then similarly, in the Python space, you need to type some code. You need to know the fundamental of Python to get started with the work. But here in this tool, we can just connect drag and drop, and we can do that. And also the web development component also available here, where I mentioned in the data science project, we need to connect this, and then we need to get the final output into as a web service. So you can see some sample experiments also there available. So you can take a look at it of this as well. We are looking to have further sessions where we can do more practicals on this space, right? So here, let's go to the next slide. So you can see Microsoft AI platform, which is giving you a lot of AI capabilities as a one single set of services. So we have things like cognitive services, bot framework that connecting with a lot of other channels like Skype, Teams, things like that. Then Azure providing infrastructure like the cloud computing and the GPU-based computing that is required for training purposes. If you want to train high-end compute, we need to get NVIDIA chip-based graphic card. So using the Azure VMs that we can create this kind of a machine within few minutes or seconds, and we can use these performance for computation purpose. So the Azure providing this kind of a high volume kind of a computation where it take a lot of time for us to actually buy a computer and then configure this. But within a few seconds, it will create a virtual machine that have all these capabilities with that specific chipsets, especially the NVIDIA-based chipsets that's using nowadays for a lot of deep learning and a lot of trainings for advanced training purposes, right? So then we can also use the tool set. So there's a question, do you use blockchain at all for security? So blockchain technology, we can connect with AI as well. There are like a lot of connections so that we can set up. So we can enable the blockchain features. So it depends on the application and the use case that we are going to use. So most of the AI solutions that we are going to develop doesn't have blockchain capabilities because blockchain reside in a completely different space with cryptocurrencies interact with that. So for example, when you are building some blockchain application, so where we can add these AI capabilities, let's say we are creating an exchange and then we have a feature of predicting the cryptocurrency price in that exchange. So where we can do that, but traditionally, most of the applications we are not connecting blockchain for most of them because they are residing two different worlds. For example, blockchain where we need to implement smart contracts, things like that, and that reside in a different space and it's directly tied with a specific blockchain network like Binance Chain or Ethereum, things like that, where this is residing in the Python space and where Python and toolset. So where the connecting part is, we need to look at different type of integrations, how you can connect. So based on the use case, of course, we are going to have both together, but some projects we can run without blockchain, but we can add the security like things like data governance and AI frameworks now. These are really key in today's AI ethics side that we are not highlighting much in this session, but it's a really vast area, AI ethics and data governance in today's world, because we cannot use this data for those kind of purposes. So we need to have a privacy and more security enable feature, and we need to make sure that this data, personal data, is not used, things like that. So there are some specific governance frameworks defined by different organizations and governments. So if you are running this project in specific country or region, you want to follow these guidelines and these frameworks. Now those are also put into place in motion as a government regulation. So then we need to follow these regulations also when you are building that, right? So yeah, I think that answers the question. If you have any more questions.
Thank you for such a detailed response.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And we can also use deep learning tools. So there are a lot of deep learning tools that we can use and integrate it into that. So Microsoft AI platform provide all the things together as a one single ecosystem provider. So you have very basic like the APIs that they are providing. That means you can just call the API and get the response. So there's no machine learning there. They have created the model. Microsoft have created the model. So we are just paying a fee for an API request and we are using that. So that is more like a developer connecting these services. So we don't need to build any AI model. We just call the API, we pay for the API, and we do that. But we can create our own this kind of a model, and then we can create our own API, and we can provide that. So likewise, they are providing different layer of features, this cloud ecosystem that we can leverage these features. Then we look at some of the softwares that we can use to develop this application. The PyCharm is one of the main software that we can use, and one advantage here is we can work in a team environment, because this project takes time. We need more developers working in a team, and it can take a couple of months to work on this. So we need to have a collaborative environment, things like version control, this repository, things like that. We need to collaborate with team members to create a complete project, end-to-end project. So that's why we can use software like PyCharm to do that purpose. And also there are other software like VS Code, really popular nowadays, where it's a lightweight tool that we can connect. And also we have a software, the Anaconda, as I mentioned, that we can use, and we can build on the top of Anaconda, where we have tools like Jupyter Notebook and Spider software. So here you can see this Anaconda environment, where in the Anaconda environment, you can see Jupyter Notebook is there, Spider is there. So likewise, you can see the software tools. And then in the environment section, you can see the packages, where you can go to the command line, and then you can install a certain package. Let's say I want to enable text to speech, speech to text. Then I can get that package, and I can install that using command line. So there's a specific command called pip install, and using that we can install this package. And the Spider software, you can see we can use it right like this, where you can use these capabilities to test out. So we have a one software, desktop software called Spider, and we have a cloud software, which is the Jupyter Notebook. And Jupyter Notebook also reside in the web as well. So let me show that as well, because you need to download this software and install. It take like a few minutes and hours. And one important thing is it will consume your machine performance, right? It consume your machine performance. But if you want to test it out quickly or build like a POC much more quickly without even using your own computation in your machine, you can use cloud computing, and there are a lot of free resources available. So this one I'm highlighting, you can use this one, which is available. You can search as Google Collab, and in that you can see you can create a new Google Collab like this. So you can go to the URL, which is collab.research.google.com, and you will get a Jupyter Notebook like this, right, in the cloud. So this is completely free of charge, but there are certain limitations in this. But it's really good to create like a POC working application, where you have a file environment. You can upload files here, and also you have coding environment, and you can have a certain computation here. And you can see you can download this in your drive. You can download the Jupyter Notebook. You can download the Python file, and also you can add collaborators, team members. You can share. So this work, like they have connected this more like everyone using Google documents. So in the Google Drive, so they have collaborate this more like that. So where the developers can collaborate, team members can collaborate, and you can easily work in a certain projects much more effectively. Like let me copy example. So here, like we can use this package called matplotlib, and using matplotlib, we can do a certain like a visualization and chart. So let me quickly copy one example here. So here you can see we are using NumPy and Matplotlib, and then from that we are creating X and Y data, and we are generating a chart. So here you can see we can run this project and we can get the chart like this. So you can see like this, we can execute this in cloud, and also we can use these packages to generate visualization charts much more effectively than other languages. If you look at C# or Java, it takes a lot of time to create these kind of charts, but here you can see it's much more simplified. We have X and Y values, we have the title dot show to generate this kind of a chart, right? So it's much more simple from here. So you can even collaborate other team members. You can see we get the certain computation here, right? That we can leverage, right? So you can see we have 1 GB RAM from 12 GB RAM, like this test. So this is completely free they are giving us, and for the paid users you get more features on top of this. So like that we can collaborate here, we can use packages, we can install packages, we can do a lot of things in this environment, and you can see you can create any number of Jupyter Notebooks packages, and it won't consume anything. You can just go to this URL collab.research.google.com, and you can create a new Jupyter Notebook. So it support like this, and you can even download this file, and you can see print, you can download the Python file, you can save, like you can even save in GitHub, things like that. So there are a lot of collaboration and everything there in this tool. And let me show the same example running in the Spider software. So in the Spider software, let me copy the same code. So here you can see I can get output like this, and here you can see in the plots section I can see visually this diagram is created like this. And in the variable explorer you can see I can see the X values and Y value. So that is one of the key factor in the Spider software, where in the variable explorer we can visually see our data set. So what is the kind of features that we are going to have. So that is really good for looking at complex data structures, like when you are working with matrix or like more multi-dimensional kind of a data that is useful when you are processing image files, audio files, or video files. So here you can see I'm creating a data frame which is from pandas framework, right? So I will import pandas as PD. So where you can see I can create a data frame like this. I will print this. You can see here it will create a data frame. So I can click here, and you can see it's create a data frame like this. So what is a data frame? So it's a data structure that we can use for creating rows and columns, because rows and columns is the forefront of working on the data science, where we need to work with millions of records like this. We can connect this to a database or Excel or like any data source, and we can work with that. But when you're working with unstructured data, so this data we call as structured data. But when you're working with unstructured data, then we need to convert to binary like format, especially used in deep learning when you want to do face recognition, when you want to do image recognition, voice recognition, or any kind of this data that you want to analyze, then we need to use the binary format, because those are not structured data, those are unstructured data. But any structured data, we can use this setup and we can use data cleaning, things like that. There's a question, can we download the Python code and executions as PDF? Yeah, so you can get multiple options to download here. So you can download like this, and the PDF you can get from the print, I think. So and go to print, and yeah, you can get like a report from here. You can get the save as PDF, right? So you can go to print. There's no export PDF option, but you can go to print, and from that you can just save it. Then you will get the as a PDF option like this, and then you can print it from there, right? I think that answers that question, right? But in the local Jupyter Notebook, there are more features available. This one we can directly use from here. In this one, you don't need to, you can see you don't need to install anything. You get all the features and it saves in your Gmail account, and you can create a Gmail account easily, and you can invite your team members that's having Gmail account, and you can comment it, and even you can see when you are collaborating other team members, when they have executed this cell, all this information is available here. So they are giving it completely free. There are some certain limitation, but you can easily create a working prototype POC without any limitation. But more high level production application, I would say, where you need to go for some paid features. It is common for any service. Of course, when you go to hosting and all this, you need to pay anyway. You cannot skip that. So that's where you need to pay. But you can start with a prototype or POC or working application that you can do is completely free without much payment. But when you go to more advanced features, we can pay. We need to pay for these additional services, right? So here you can see another unique feature in the Spider software, which is this kind of visualization, where we can see we cannot see this in the Jupyter notebook. That's a unique feature in the Spider software. So where we use data frame like this to generate this kind of application. Then let me quickly show also like how much like complex kind of data that we can visualize using Matplotlib, because this is a really powerful package. Let's say, because we are in this field, we are not working only with 2-dimension or 1-dimensional data. We are working on multi-dimension, right? Let's say we want to predict DNA sequence, right? So now you know like a lot of medicine related drug prediction also happening in the biomedical field, in the data science sector, right? So in that we need to visualize this 3D data. We need to visualize the DNA or specific sequence. So that's again the domain side also really important, where the medical domain, where we can do a lot of areas of innovations that's happening at the moment as well. We are predicting a cancer, specific cancer, skin cancer, we can do by analyzing image. We can predict a certain diseases, things like that, and how we can generate drugs, specific drug creation. We can do, there are a lot of research and projects happening on predicting formulas on drugs, where we can, if you can master that, what is the advantage we can save many lives, because we can predict and we can get a formula that's working sequence much more faster and effectively than the manual process. Of course, we need to test it and go to approval. But if it is working, if approved, then we can have that faster life cycle. We have seen in COVID also it takes some time to get these vaccinations. So now there are research like how the vaccination, so this kind of a solution for a specific disease. So if you can get it much more faster, it can save millions of lives. That's the main reason. So that's where we need to like research. We need to visualize this data also much more effectively. So here, let me show one example where how we can visualize 3D data using Matplotlib. You can see we can visualize data like this. So using this, you can see we can visualize 3-dimensional data, DNA sequence or any other sequence. We can visualize much more effectively using this specific package. So this is again Matplotlib and sub package called Access 3D. So using that, we can use, so you can see here we are generating the data XYZ, but here we can get the data points for the 3-dimension, and we can generate, right? So then we can analyze further and we can do that. So there are a lot of areas. That's why the industry and the domain knowledge also important, because as a technical person, you don't have that domain knowledge. So let's say you are working a solution in the medical field, so you need to have doctors who are having that medical knowledge, or the biomedical, or that specific person having that specific domain knowledge, plus a technical person to actually execute these things. So it's a collaborative effort that we need to have domain knowledge, data science knowledge, and some mathematical knowledge together. Again, we cannot have that in one person. So it's a team effort that we need to have to solve these problems, right? So we come toward the end of the session. So we have looked at some of these areas. So we can see some of the common algorithms that is created. So you can see these are part of the research, right? From a lot of research industry, from the academics, right? PhD holders, working. So we have Philips also joining us. So likewise, from the research community, they collaborate with these researchers, these academic world, academic things. So where we have a lot of these researchers nowadays and a lot of innovations happening as a part of that. A lot of people are going into these areas and a lot of innovative kind of areas we have. So because of that, we have a lot of these algorithms, new algorithms coming up, and we can leverage. So as developers, we can leverage this and we can use this from these frameworks. So for example, if you look at machine learning, we have this framework called sklearn, scikit-learn. So using scikit-learn, we can use a lot of machine learning capabilities here. So you can see classification, regression, clustering, like that. So there are many examples you can follow through and see where we can easily use this in our application development, right? So as developers, we need to use these capabilities, right, in our applications, right? So we need to look at the research that is available. But if you have academic field, you might end up working on the research side of things, where you support the research, or you join as a research assistant, you collect data, you do formulas for mathematically, and then do test cases, things like that. You go to that academic space. But in the industry, the corporate side, if you want to integrate these into existing projects or existing in-house projects, internal websites, internal corporate sites, or the public sites that you are doing a solution, then we need to adapt these in open source frameworks, and then you need to use this. But if you have big budgets, of course, we can do both research and the practical together, like Google is doing. They have big budget, so they also have research, big research arm, where they do come up with their own research, and they come up with their own solutions, and then they adapt this into their practical side, where in their solutions we can see that we are using every day. That is, they are adapting these kind of research. But for other companies and individuals, they can use existing available frameworks. And because the good thing here is these are updated every day, every month. These are open source frameworks. When you call the latest version, you already get in the very latest feature of this. So that is one of the main advantage of these tools. Okay, so we come toward the end of the session. So if you have any questions further, you can ask, you can put in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. You can ask and you can write to us also. If you have any further questions, you can connect with us. And as I mentioned, we'll be sharing this recording also. You can take a look at it of the recording. We are sharing in our emerging technology meetup group, where we looking for like more collaborations in coming months. And we also have a lot of different technology streams and technology topics bringing in this meetup, where we're looking at blockchain, AI, and other technologies as topics. And every month we are by default having monthly meetups. Sometimes we might have 2 meetups per month as well. So any questions, of course, floor is open, can ask. So there's a question different between scikit-learn and NumPy. That's a good question. So NumPy is mostly for number processing. So for example, we can use for basic mathematical calculations like sine, cosine calculations, and basic data structures. We can use NumPy. It's a very basic package, more like math package in the Python, but more advanced than that. Where we have the NumPy array that can have multidimensional data. But scikit-learn is a machine learning package. So in that we have features like regression and the prediction, the classification, and all this, where we can focus on these algorithms and how we can fine-tune the algorithm. And there's a certain process in the algorithm, how we can get the results, like training a model, getting a result, and getting a prediction. So that is supporting with the scikit-learn. But to import as input of the scikit-learn, we might need the NumPy package, where we might have calculations. We need to save that data in specific data structures. That is where the NumPy is supported. Any other questions?
Between learning Python and R, which do you recommend?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because R is the one that initially start with all this, and is having really good in the academic space as well, in terms of statistics and proving these models and things like that. But what happened is because now the Python become more capable because of this open source framework. So any new framework that is coming up, that is by default going to enable into Python. That's the key differentiator, because they have created the environment in a way that it's separate from the package, is separate from the Python language itself, but R is more created like it's tightly connect with the R language. So that's why Python is overtaking, I would say, where any new package, any new technology that comes in, they might have a Python package that we can add into that. So Python, I cannot say forever, but until next few years, Python is the market lead at the moment. It's really demanding at the moment, but we cannot say what's happening after after 10 years or something like that. There might be completely new language taking over without us knowing, but next couple of years, Python is really strong, I would say.
I really appreciate your exhaustive responses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your joining in the meetup as well. Does not. Thank you. Any other questions you have before we wrap up the session? And we bring this session today as part of the Microsoft Global AI Bootcamp initiative. So this happening globally also. You are welcome to attend other sessions as well. So you can check the Global AI community. So we had this session today, part of this, and in the Global AI Bootcamp, you can check other sessions in other cities as well, across US, Europe, and Asia, all over the world within this month. So I think some of the sessions are already completed, but other sessions will be still on. You can check this globalai.community, and you can check other sessions in other cities. They might have in different formats, but covering these core areas. So you are welcome to join these areas, other sessions as well in other cities. Some might have maybe physical kind of meetups as well. You are welcome to join in. And in our emerging technology meetup, I think everyone joined from that. In that meetup, we are having monthly sessions like that, and we are not only focused to AI. We have mentioned we are focused to a lot of emerging technologies, blockchain, virtual reality, things like quantum computing, edge computing, IoT, 5G, cybersecurity, like that. And we are planning to bring other speakers into these other startups, share a lot of new ideas, innovations, things like that. We always try to give you the very latest up-to-date information to get you really good understanding and for in your journey when you are learning these things. I hope you learn a lot of things in this bootcamp session, and looking forward to seeing you all and be sharing this recording also. If you have any questions, you can also write to us. Thank you for joining.